Welcome to Reviews at Scare with Jess and Blair. I'm Jess.
I'm Blair.
Blair, how are you?
I'm doing good, man. Yourself?
I am doing very well. Thank you very much. It is official. We have reached the final Simpsons Treehouse of Horror bonus episode we will be reviewing this year.
Yeah.
It's coming in a little late. October was insane for us this year.
Yeah.
Extremely busy. But we just had so much fun doing these Treehouse of Horrors that we thought, let's still put this one out. It might be a bit late, but this is one of the best ones. We got to put it out there.
100%.
I am perspirating in anticipation. So what do you say we dive right in?
Let's do it, man.
Air date on this one, October 28th, 1993, Season 5, Episode 5. Blairski, fun facts on this one?
So this episode makes cultural references to television series such as The Twilight Zone, Night Gallery, and Peanuts.
Yeah.
As well as films such as The Devil and Daniel Webster, Bram Stoker's Dracula, and The Lost Boys.
Yeah.
Pretty awesome.
Very awesome indeed.
You told me this the other day, but this was Conan O'Brien's final writing assignment for The Simpsons.
Yeah, absolutely.
His late night talk show, which had just started, I think, a month prior, was starting to take off. So
yeah, there was some hints to it in the credit names, which was I think I have it written down, but we'll get to it later on. It's basically like tune in to Conan at midnight, whatever.
Give him a little promotion.
Yeah, he was going off to start as one of the greatest, if not the greatest, television talk show hosts of all time. I love Conan.
Yeah. It was the start. It was definitely the start of something big for him.
Hell yeah. Yeah.
The wraparound segment with Bart introducing each story based on a painting is based off of Rod Serling's television series Night Gallery.
Yeah,
did you watch that?
Well, I'm a huge Rod Serling fan. Obviously, Rod Serling created The Twilight Zone, and then he created Night Gallery. So I'm not as I've definitely watched Night Gallery. I'm just not as big a fan of Night Gallery as I am of The Twilight Zone.
Yeah, it's basically just as Bart was doing, he unveils paintings through the episode, and then there's a story kind of based upon that. But pretty cool idea.
Really cool. Yeah.
Finally, the paintings that we're seeing are parodies of well-known works, including The Scream, The Son of Man, The Death of Merit, The Persistence of Memory, Three Musicians, and Ascending and Descending, all featuring members of the Simpsons family, though.
Those are pretty. I really like those. Nice little Simpsons mashup with the classic pieces of art. I really like those. Yeah. My favorite painting being the Ghoul Bus.
The Ghoul Bus is pretty funny.
Yeah.
Bart.
I've got a couple fun facts here. This is the first appearance of German exchange student Uter.
Is it really?
Yeah, don't chase me. I'm full of chocolate.
He reminds me of that fat German kid from Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory.
Augustus Gloop.
Augustus Gloop, yeah.
That's right, yeah. And then finally, this is the last Treehouse of Horrors special to use sequences to bridge the segments together. Which is too bad. This is only it's so early on in The Simpsons, and I love those in between segments, especially this one.
Yeah,
the Night Gallery thing. I love that. It was so cool. Let's talk about some of the fine folks who worked on this one. Of course, written by Conan O'Brien, Bill Oakley, Josh Weinstein, Greg Daniels, Dan McGrath, and Bill Canterbury, just to name a few. Starring, of course, Dan Castellaneta, Julia Kavner, Nancy Cartwright, Yearly Smith, Hank Azaria, Harry Shearer, Pamela Hayden, Russi Tyler, Frank Welker, and the legend himself, Mr. Phil Hartman. Synopsis of this one, courtesy of our dear friends at IMDb. Homer sells his soul for a donut. Bart contends with a gremlin on the side of the school bus, which only he can see, and the family discovers that Mr. Burns is a vampire. Yeah,
Yep.
absolutely. The three segments in this one are called The Devil and Homer Simpson,
Yeah.
Terror at 5.5 Feet, and Bart Simpson's Dracula. This leads us to kill count. Blairski, do we have a kill count for this?
I'm sure there is. I can think of one for sure when the car gremlin blows up.
I was going to say there's no way that Hans Moleman survived that gremlin crash or that gremlin explosion.
But yeah, no, but I didn't count any kills while watching this.
That's fine. Let's move right along to our next segment. Of course, likes and dislikes, the portion of the show where we talk about what we liked, what we didn't like, and everything in between. Blairski, did you want to kick this one off?
Yeah, I'm going to talk about some of the scenes I really liked.
Excellent.
In the first segment, there's that scene at the end. So Homer's a giant donut. And then there's all the cops standing outside the house with coffee in hand, waiting outside for donut Homer to emerge. It's so funny. It's so great.
One of the best gags that I can remember The Simpsons doing. Chief Wiggum's is just so good. But when you have kind of a setup like that with Homer as the head being the donut, it is so funny. It's great.
Well, I can't remember what he says. I'm hoping maybe you have it as a line of the night, but
I do indeed.
Okay. All right, because I don't have it, but
I've got it.
Whatever he says is absolutely hilarious. So I love how out of all the characters in the Simpsons universe, they picked Ned Flanders to play the devil.
Yeah. It's so well, obviously he's the last character you would expect to be the devil, right, which I think maybe is the whole point, but that's also what makes it so funny. I think right off the bat you would think, oh, the devil, it's going to be Mr. Burns.
Yeah.
It's got to be Mr. Burns. But to have him as Flanders, it takes us completely by surprise. It's so funny.
And he played it really well. Like Flanders was actually a pretty good devil.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
My second favorite cartoon devil after the South Park devil, I think.
Yeah, of course. Oh, goodness.
I love the cameo we get again from our two alien friends, Kang and Kudos. Do I say that right? I always say Kudos, but I think it's Kodos.
Kodos. Yeah.
I love how they're laughing at the humans just like being attacked by this gremlin, and all of a sudden they just turn to their left and it's eating their ship.
Yeah, the gremlin's on the side of their UFO. Yeah, so great.
The last thing I've written down here for likes, I didn't write many notes for likes and dislikes. I just know I like this episode and I could talk about it forever. I've seen it so many times.
Yeah,
is I found the Dracula segment just so fitting for us for the time of the month, considering we just did Dracula.
Absolutely.
So it kind of gave it some extra meaning, as much as I've always enjoyed that segment.
Yeah.
I loved it.
It's such a visually strong episode, just all around. Each segment, they're all ones where the images have stuck with me basically my whole life.
Yeah.
After watching it for the first time, I always have the image of Homer as a donut.
Yeah.
I always have the image of the gremlin on the side of the bus, or Hans Moleman in the gremlin exploding.
Yeah.
And then I always have the image of, Mr. Burns with his wild Gary
crazy
Oldman haircut. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It's so good. What I love about this episode is all three segments are so strong.
I was watching it and I found the whole episode went by very fast, which means I was enjoying it from beginning to end, right? So
yeah, just to do this review, I think I watched it 3 times.
Yeah, me too.
But I enjoyed it each time, and I picked up something new each time. It was just with the earlier ones, even though we liked them a lot, there was at least one segment that was noticeably ran a little bit longer than the others, or was a bit slower. This one was perfect all the way through. It is perfect. And I think that comes down to and I mentioned this kind of in the last episode as well. I think the writers at this time were figuring out the voices of the characters.
Yeah.
Obviously not even just the Simpsons family, But in this episode, we get a lot of screen time from some really classic Simpsons secondary characters.
Mhm.
We get a lot of screen time from Milhouse,
Flanders.
lots from Flanders, lots from Chief Wiggums, lots from Principal Skinner.
Yeah.
We see Lionel Hutz in this one. Like,
Yeah.
there's so many great secondary
Lionel
characters
Hutz.
and they're not even just there for the sake of being there. They have great lines,
Mhm.
really great lines. And this is, I think, where the writers were really confident with the family and the voices of the family, and it let them kind of expand a little bit with the other citizens of Springfield and kind of bring in those secondary characters and have a lot of fun with them.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it.
Me too.
I got to point out, Terror at 5.5 feet is one of my all-time favorite Treehouse of Horror segments. Obviously, I mentioned it a million times, but I'm a huge Twilight Zone fan.
Yeah.
And it is just the perfect parody of Nightmare at 20,000 Feet, starring a young William Shatner.
Yeah.
It's just such a good episode. It's so funny. The character Skinner, Principal Skinner in this one was great. I have a bunch of line of the nights just from Skinner.
I definitely have one. I definitely have one from that segment. Yeah.
It was just so funny. And then you had mentioned it, the excellent intro sequences in between segments.
Yeah, from Bart.
Yeah, this is my favorite intro and in between sequences that we've seen. I love Rod Serling and I love the Twilight Zone Night Gallery. And we get both series used heavily in this episode. And it made me really, really happy. Also great that Marge pokes her head in to give the viewers a proper warning.
Yeah.
Much like she did in the last Treehouse of Horror that we watched. She did the first two intros, and then Homer did one.
Homer did it.
Where Marge still popped in.
Scolds him.
He wasn't taking it very seriously.
And neither was Bart.
Yeah, exactly. Same kind of idea with this one. Bart not really taking it very seriously. Marge pokes her head in. It's great. And then finally, excellent couch gag in this one.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of running in, the Simpsons family crawl in, emerging
floor,
out of
right?
out of the a hole in the floor as a family of zombies. It was excellent. Perfect start to this episode. I love it. I have zero complaints about this one.
Yeah, I have nothing written in dislikes at all.
Yeah, nothing at all. Let's move right along. Let's go to one of our newer segments just for these episodes. It's called What's on That Tombstone? The portion of the episode where Blair regales us with funny / interesting names he sees on the many tombstones in the fourth Simpsons Treehouse of Horror. Blairski, do we have any tombstones?
There wasn't as many this episode as previous. I noticed that right away. I only had to rewind it twice just to get them all down. Yeah. The first one says Elvis, accept it.
Accept it. Elvis is dead.
Yeah. Next one was a balanced budget, which is still true today, probably.
Yeah.
Subtle political satire.
Okay.
And which is pretty funny. But the last one was my favorite, and it says TV violence. And then the tombstone just gets shot up and even starts bleeding.
With a Tommy gun. Yeah, I love it. It was so good. Yeah. Those are great ones. And now I can't remember. I feel like, did they stop using tombstones?
I don't know if they did. I don't know if it was after this episode. I can't remember which episode.
They're becoming fewer, as you mentioned in this one. There's not many of them. Let's move right along. This is another one of our newer segments for these episodes specifically. And it's called, Hey, That's a Funny Name. The portion of the show where we go through some of the funny / scary names used in the opening and closing credits featured in the fourth Simpsons Treehouse of Horrors. There's a few really good ones. First, Matt, Mr. Spooky Groaning.
Yeah.
Followed by Matt, Count Chocula Groaning, which is great. I have Sam Sayonara Simon. Conan, 1230 NBC O'Brien.
There you go. That's what it was. Yeah.
There's the cell for the Conan O'Brien show. Yeah. We have unimaginative Gary Richards, which I thought was great.
Yeah.
We have Boo Boo Scaria Hankazaria. We have Phil Heart on a Stick Man, which I thought was really sweet. And then Julie Kavner.
I love it. I love
Which
it.
is great. Yeah.
You did that very well too.
Yeah.
Just how they wrote it.
Yeah. Really, really strong, funny names this episode. Let's keep moving right along to our next segment, which is lessons we learned from watching the fourth Simpsons Treehouse of Horrors.
Lessons we learned from watching. Insert title of movie here.
This segment of the show where we talk about the valuable life lessons we learned from watching said television episode. Blairski, did you learn anything?
Learned 3 things here. The first is the devil is always the one you least expect.
Yeah.
As in Ned Flanders.
Yeah, absolutely.
Second thing I learned is there is an actual car called a gremlin. I never even knew that before.
Yeah.
And as delicious as donuts may be, they are not worth selling your soul to the devil for.
No, not at all.
Especially when you get donuts from certain places.
And I mean, I love donuts.
I do
but
too.
I mean, I can only imagine what that one tasted like. Oh.
But the final piece he took out of the fridge.
Yeah. Oh, goodness. I learned a few things here. If you say you're a vampire, you get a free small soda at the movies, as per Vampire Millhouse. Being a vampire is a gateway to a life of debauchery. One day you're drinking blood, the next you could be smoking.
Yeah.
I also learned that Richard Nixon, although a member of the jury of the damned in the first segment, was very much alive when the episode premiered. I actually believe he passed 5 months after the episode.
Oh, really? Okay.
Premiered. The Philadelphia Flyers hockey team was also very much alive. I think it was just all about the Broad Street Bullies no longer being a thing. Yeah. That's what I have for lessons we learned. So let's move right along to Line of the Night.
Line of the night. Line of the night. Line of the night. Line of the night. Line of the night. Line of the night. Line of the night. Line of the night. Line of the night.
The segment of the show where we discuss our favorite lines from the television episode. They might give us chills. They might give us the giggles. All we know is that they are our favorites. Blairski, line of the night. You got a couple?
This one had so many.
Yeah,
this episode had so many.
Yeah.
I've got about 6.
Perfect.
Most of them are pretty short and sweet. So
awesome.
Marge says, Lisa, stop being so suspicious. Did everyone wash their necks like Mr. Burns asked? Homer says, it sure was nice of Mr. Burns to invite us over for a midnight dinner at his country house in Pennsylvania. Instead of Transylvania, obviously.
Yeah, of course.
Blackbeard the pirate. This chair be high, says I.
Yeah, I love that one. Such a good visual, too.
I got 2 more. Chief Wiggum. We think we're dealing with supernatural being, most likely a mummy. As precaution, I've ordered the Egyptian wing of the Springfield Museum destroyed.
Yeah, this was after a series of vampire attacks.
Yeah, nothing to do with the mummy at all. It's
very Police Chief Wiggums.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And finally, this is Principal Skinner in, your favorite segment for sure.
Yeah, yeah.
Hello, Simpsons. I'm riding the bus today because Mother hid my car keys to punish me for talking to a woman on the phone. She was right to do it.
She was right to do it. Yeah. Oh, so good.
Oh, man. Skinner and his mother.
Oh, he will never be principal of the line, ever. Oh, goodness. I've got a couple here. Mr. Burns, in the first segment, after seeing Flanders as Satan on the security camera, says, "Who's that goat-legged fellow? I like the cut of his jib."
Yeah.
Oh, goodness. I have Homer, after eating the last bite of the forbidden donut, saying, forbidden donut, which is great. Lionel Hutz, this is one of my favorite lines of all time.
He was great this episode.
Yeah, he says, this is after Homer is going to be put on trial, it says, "Mr. Simpson, don't you worry. I watched Matlock in a bar last night. The sound wasn't on, but I think I got the gist of it." So excellent. Lisa to Homer after his head has been turned into a giant donut by stupid, sexy Satan Flanders says,
Stupid sexy.
"Dad, I wouldn't go outside if I were you." And then it cuts to outside the Simpsons house where a group of cops are waiting, and Police Chief Wiggum says, "Don't worry, boys. He's got to come out of there sometime."
That's what he says. I love it.
Yeah. I've got a couple from Principal Skinner from the second segment. He says, "Now I've gotten word that a child is using his imagination, and I've come to put a stop to it." And then another one from Skinner. "The only monster on this bus is a lack of proper respect for the rules."
Yeah, it's a principal thing to say.
Such a Skinner line. And then finally, Homer in the last segment says, "Oh, Lisa, you and your stories. Bart is a vampire. Beer kills brain cells. Now let's go back to that building thingy where our beds and TV is."
So very much a Homer thing to say.
It's so good. Yeah. Like you said, this episode is chock full of just brilliant writing.
It's one of the grades, man. It is one of the grades. I remember it so much from when I was young.
Yeah, absolutely. Season 3, 4, 5, 6. That is meat and potatoes.
Yeah.
That leads us to our final rating for the fourth Simpsons Treehouse of Horror. Blairski, out of 5 conveyor belts filled with an endless supply of delicious hell donuts, what do you give this one?
Of course, man. I'm giving it 5 conveyor belts filled with an endless supply of delicious hell donuts out of 5.
Excellent. I couldn't agree more. 5 conveyor belts filled with an endless supply of delicious hell donuts out of 5. This was an excellent episode and a really fun one, man, to end the great month of October / start the so-so month of November off with.
The so-so month.
This is something that I think going forward, come Halloween season, we should definitely revisit and continue watching these, because this was a lot of fun.
Pick up where we left. So like next year, start at 5 and just keep going.
I think so. Yeah, these are just a lot of fun to do.
Yeah, I'm totally down with that, man.
Absolutely. But until next Halloween, we will pause with the Treehouse of Horrors and get back to our regular scheduled programming. But until then, this has been Review Set Scare with Jess and Blair. I'm Jess.
I'm Blair. Remember to stay scary.
And eat every sandwich. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to Review Set Scare. Make sure you check out our Linktree at linktree/reviewsetscare. That's linktr.ee/reviewsetscare, which has links to our Instagram, YouTube, Patreon, Twitch, and many other things. If you'd like to email us, you can reach us at reviewsetscare@gmail.com. Thanks for listening, and remember to stay scary and eat every sandwich. A proud member of Pod Nation TV.